Halakha is the collective body of Jewish religious laws derived from the written and oral Torah. It includes the 613 mitzvot, subsequent Talmudic and rabbinic law, and the customs and traditions compiled in the Shulchan Aruch. Judaism classically draws no distinction in its laws between religious and non-religious life. Jewish religious tradition does not distinguish clearly between religious, national, racial, or ethnic identities. Halakha guides not only religious practices and beliefs, but numerous aspects of day-to-day life. Halakha is often translated as Jewish law, although a more literal translation might be the way to behave or the way of walking. The word derives from the root that means to behave. Historically, in the diaspora, halakha served many Jewish communities as an enforceable avenue of law, both civil and religious law. Since there is no differentiation in classical Judaism, since the Age of Enlightenment, Emancipation, and Haskalah, many have come to view the halakha as less binding in day-to-day life, as it relies on rabbinic interpretation, as opposed to the pure, written words written in the Jewish Bible. Under contemporary Israeli law, however, certain areas of Israeli family and personal status law are under the authority of the rabbinic courts and are therefore treated according to halakha. Some differences in halakha itself are found among Ashkenazi, Mizrahi, Sephardi, Yemenite and other Jews who historically lived in isolated communities, which are reflective of the historic and geographic diversity of various Jewish communities within the diaspora. Etymology and terminology. The name halakha is derived from the Hebrew helek, meaning behavior. Taken literally, therefore, halakha translates as the way to behave rather than law. Halakha is used to refer to the corpus of rabbinic legal texts, or to the overall system of religious law. Halakha also does not include the parts of the Torah not related to commandments. Halakha constitutes the practical application of the 613 mitzvot in the Torah, as developed through discussion and debate in the classical rabbinic literature, especially the Mishnah and the Talmud, and as codified in the Mishneh Torah or Shulchan Aruch. The halakha is a comprehensive guide to all aspects of human life, both corporeal and spiritual. Its laws, guidelines, and opinions cover a vast range of situations and principles. In the attempt to realize what is implied by the central biblical commandment to be holy as I your God am holy, they cover what are claimed to be better ways for a Jew to live, based on what is not stated, but has been derived from the Hebrew Bible. Because halakha is developed and applied by various halakhic authorities rather than one sole, official voice, different individuals and communities may well have different answers to halakhic questions. Controversies lend rabbinic literature much of its creative and intellectual appeal, with few exceptions. Controversies are not settled through authoritative structures because during the diaspora Jews have lacked a single judicial hierarchy or appellate review process for halakha. Instead, Jews interested in observing halakha typically choose to follow specific rabbis or affiliate with a more tightly structured community. This factor has also been a central core in the development of the Hasidut. Halakha has been developed and poured over throughout the generations since before 500 BCE, in a constantly expanding collection of religious literature initially consolidated in the Talmud. First and foremost, it forms a body of intricate judicial opinions, legislation, customs, and recommendations, many of them passed down over the centuries, and an assortment of ingrained behaviors, relayed to successive generations from the moment a child begins to speak. It is also the subject of intense study in yeshivas, see Torah study. Laws of the Torah. Broadly, the halakha comprises the practical application of the commandments in the Torah, as developed in subsequent rabbinic literature, see the mitzvot and Jewish law. According to the Talmud, there are 613 mitzvot in the Torah. In Hebrew these are known as the Taryag mitzvot, an Hebrew alphabet numerical value of 613. There are 248 positive mitzvot and 365 negative mitzvot given in the Torah, supplemented by 7 mitzvot legislated by the rabbis of antiquity. See Rabbinical commandments. Categories. Jewish law may be categorized in various ways, besides the basic categories applied to the mitzvot in antiquity. During the medieval period, Jewish law was classified by such works as Maimonides' Mishneh Torah and Joseph Kerar's Shulchan Aruch. Classical Rabbinic Judaism has 2 basic categories of laws: laws believed revealed by God to the Jewish people at Mount Sinai, and also elucidations therefrom, Halakha Moshe Missinai. Laws of human origin including rabbinic decrees, interpretations, customs, etc. This division between revealed and rabbinic commandments may influence the importance of a rule, its enforcement and the nature of its ongoing interpretation. Halakhic authorities may disagree on which laws fall into which categories or the circumstances under which prior rabbinic rulings can be re-examined by contemporary rabbis. But all Halakhic Jews hold that both categories exist and that the first category is immutable, with exceptions only for life-saving and similar emergency circumstances. A second classical distinction is between the written law, laws written in the Hebrew Bible, and between the oral law, laws believed transmitted orally prior to compilation in texts such as the Mishnah, Talmud, and rabbinic codes. Commandments are divided into positive and negative commands, which are treated differently in terms of divine and human punishment. Positive commandments require an action to be performed and are considered to bring the performer closer to God. Negative commandments forbid a specific action, and violations create a distance from God. In striving to be holy, as God is holy, a person attempts so far as possible to live in accordance with God's wishes for humanity, striving to more completely live with each of these with every moment of one's life. A further division is made between Tukum, Mishpatim and Eduyot. Through the ages, various rabbinical authorities have classified some of the 613 commandments in various other ways. A different approach divides the laws into a different set of categories: laws in relation to God, and laws about relations with other people. There is a notion in Halakha that violations of the latter are more severe, in certain ways, because of the requirement that one must obtain forgiveness both from the offended person and also from God. Within Talmudic literature, Jewish law is divided into the 6 orders of the Mishnah, which are categories by proximate subject matter: Zeraim for agricultural laws and prayer, Mode for the Sabbath and the festivals, Nashim, dealing primarily with marriage and divorce, Nezikin, for civil and criminal law, Kodashim, for sacrifices and the dietary laws, and Tohorot for ritual purity. However, Talmudic texts often deal with laws outside these apparent subject categories. As a result, Jewish law came to be categorized in other ways in the post-Talmudic period. In the major codes of Jewish law, 2 other main categorization schemes are found. Maimonides' Mishneh Torah divides the laws into 14 sections. The codification efforts that culminated in the Shulchan Aruch divide the law into 4 sections, including only laws that do not depend on being physically present in the land of Israel. Sin Judaism regards the violation of the commandments, the mitzvot, to be a sin. The generic Hebrew word for any kind of sin is avera. Based on the Tanakh, Judaism describes 3 levels of sin: pesha, an intentional sin, an action committed in deliberate defiance of God's commandments; avon, a sin of lust or uncontrollable emotion, committed against one's will and is not in line with one's true inner desires. It is a sin done knowingly, but not done to defy God. Chet, an unintentional sin. Relatedly, the 3 terms, chayav, pater, mutar, in the Gemara and Halakhic codes classify the permissibility of an action or the severity of its prohibition and punishment. Pater means exempt of liability to punishment. However, the action is forbidden. Mutar means the action is permitted. Judaism understands that the vast majority of people, aside from those who are termed tzaddikim and those termed tzaddikim gemurim, will succumb to sin in their lives. A sin or a state of sin does not condemn a person to damnation. There is always a road of teshuvah. There are some classes of people for whom this is exceedingly difficult, such as those who commit adultery, as well as those who slander others. In earlier days, when ancient Jews had a functioning court system, courts were empowered to administer physical punishments for various violations. Upon conviction by extremely high standards of evidence, far stricter than those required in Western courts today. These punishments included execution, corporal punishment, incarceration, and excommunication. However, since the fall of the Second Temple, executions have been forbidden. Since the fall of the autonomous Jewish communities of Europe, most other punishments also have been discontinued. Today, then, one's accounts are reckoned solely by God. The Talmud says that although courts capable of executing sinners no longer exist, the prescribed penalties continue to be applied by providence. For instance, someone who has committed a sin punishable by stoning might fall off a roof, or someone who ought to be executed by strangulation might drown. Gentiles and Jewish law. Judaism has always held that people who are not Jews are only obliged to follow the 7 Noahide laws. These are laws that the oral law derives from the covenant God made with Noah after the flood, which Judaism holds apply to all descendants of Noah, i.e., all living people. 4 of the 7 laws are also listed in the 10 Commandments. The Noahide laws are derived in the Talmud, and are listed here. Murder is forbidden. Theft is forbidden. Sexual immorality, including homosexuality, is forbidden. Eating flesh cut from a still living animal is forbidden. Belief in and worship of, or prayer to, idols is forbidden. Blaspheming against God is forbidden. Society must establish a fair system of legal justice to administer law honestly. The details of these laws are codified from the Talmudist texts in the Mishneh Torah. They can be found mainly in chapters 9 and 10 of Hilkot Melukim Umil Hamotium in Sefer Shoftim, the 14th book of the Mishneh Torah.